Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our midday briefing live on EBS. We are today Friday, the 4th of February. Pour commencer nos annonces, j'aimerais partager avec vous l'agenda de la présidente von der Leyen pour la semaine prochaine. Lundi, la présidente von der Leyen recevra le président de la Pologne, Andrzej Duda. Puis, mardi, elle présidera la réunion du collège qui aura lieu exceptionnellement ce jour-là plutôt que mercredi. Donc, merci de bien prendre note de ce changement de calendrier important. Ceci est lié au fait qu'après la réunion du collège, la présidente se rendra au Maroc. L'agenda de la visite est toujours en préparation et nous vous annoncerons les détails la semaine prochaine. Mercredi et jeudi, la présidente, ensemble avec plusieurs membres du collège, sera au Sénégal, où elle aura une série de réunions portant tant sur les relations bilatérales entre l'Union européenne et le Sénégal que sur les préparatifs pour le sommet entre l'Union européenne et l'Union africaine qui aura lieu à Bruxelles la semaine suivante. Enfin, vendredi, la présidente se rendra à Brest pour participer au One Ocean Summit organisé par la présidence française du Conseil. To continue, let me call Stefan, who has important news on trade with the US and our EU health standards. Stefan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have today, on this beautiful Friday, good news for the fans of mussels and other shellfish. I'm actually glad to announce that as from the end of this month, trade of so-called bivalve mollusks, and I'm talking here about mussels, oysters, scallops and clams, will be possible again between the United States and the European Union. More precisely, Spain and the Netherlands will be allowed to export their bivalve mollusks to the United States, whilst Massachusetts and Washington State will be allowed to do the same to the European Union. After years of discussions and audits between the United States and the Commission, both sides decided today indeed to reopen their transatlantic cooperation for these products. A significant and important element of this important step forward is the fact that other EU member states could also be allowed to export their bivalve mollusks to the United States on the basis of a simplified authorization procedure agreed between the United States and the European Union. If you want to know more about mussels, oysters, clams and scallops, consult a good cooking book, but first check out our press corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. You're making me really hungry here. So I call on all journalists to have pity on us and allow us to go to lunch afterwards. And I'm absolutely not biased when it comes to the origin of the bivalve mollusks that you were talking about, as long as they taste good. OK, puis je vous rappelle qu'une réunion informelle des ministres de la Justice est en cours à Lille. La commission est représentée par le commissaire Didier Reynders. Les ministres discuteront de la lutte contre les crimes et les discours de haine en ligne. Ils auront notamment l'occasion d'échanger avec des représentants de Google et Meta sur ce dossier. De plus, les ministres échangeront sur les dispositifs d'alerte en cas d'enlèvement d'enfants et sur la reconnaissance de la filiation entre États membres. Une conférence de presse avec la participation du commissaire Reynders est prévue vers 16h45. Nous vous prions donc de réserver vos questions sur ces sujets à cette conférence de presse comme d'habitude. Voilà qui clôt nos annonces et nous allons prendre vos questions. Je vais commencer avec une question de la plateforme Interactio. Beata.
Yes, now you can hear me, I guess. Eric, as you've mentioned the visit of the Polish president in town on Monday, do you envisage any press statements, either oral or written, or press conferences? And how about the exact timing? So this is the question on logistics, and I have also some questions on energy, so I'll keep it for Tim later.
Thanks. No, I can't provide you with details on the logistics for the moment. I'll need to check the exact timing. To be honest, I did not check before coming down. And when it comes to any statements, we will have to see. Okay. Well, listen. Since this was a very short question, Beata, I'll give you the floor on energy.
So now on energy, two questions. First, on the ruling of the court 2 days ago, they decided to annul the decision of the Commission to reject the complaint by the Polish wholesaler PGNiG, which is in Polish PGNiG, alleging the abusive practices by Gazprom. Will the Commission appeal, or if not, when will the Commission start the investigation? And the second question, if I may, also on energy. It concerns the Nord Stream 2 and the new German-based subsidiary operator set up by Gazprom for 54-kilometer pipeline. Will the Commission consider it as something that can be independent, or the Commission has some doubts? And does it mean, with this new subsidiary, that the whole process of certification should start from the beginning? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the second question, and I'm looking at Tim to make sure that I say the right thing, but at the moment, as you know, the procedure is at the level of the national authorities. So obviously, for the moment, the Commission will refrain from making any comment on this procedure or on the underlying facts. On your first question, it's actually a competition question. So for Ariana. Ariana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Indeed, on Wednesday, the court has delivered 2 judgments relating to Gazprom. In the first judgment, we have taken note that the General Court has dismissed PGNiG's application for annulment of a 2018 Commission decision against Gazprom. In our decision, we had imposed legally binding commitments on Gazprom to address the competition concerns that we had identified in the context of an investigation into Gazprom's practices in Central and Eastern European gas markets. In the second judgment, well, we have taken note also of that one, of course, and the court had upheld instead PGNiG's application for annulment of a 2019 Commission decision rejecting PGNiG's complaint against Gazprom's alleged anti-competitive practices always in Central and Eastern European gas markets. We will carefully study the judgment and reflect on possible next steps, so I'm afraid that at this stage I cannot go further than this.
Okay, I see lots of hands raised in the chat. I assume that they're not all on the issue of energy that we are and competition that we are currently discussing. Please only keep your hand raised if your question is on energy. Beata, you have a follow-up.
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Tanya, is it on this? Hello? Hello? Okay, we're not managing to connect, so we will consider that this issue is closed, and you have the floor. Yeah.
Thanks, Angelo Mamer from ANSA. It's about food and trade again. If you could give us the state of the play of the trade disruption on black olives from Spain. It's EU-US situation as well. The EU won a WTO panel, and what's the state of play?
You really want to make us hungry today. A question for Miriam, I believe.
Thank you very much. So what we can say is that we welcome that the US has accepted the final panel report in the ripe olives case by the dispute settlement body of the World Trade Organization. We are now waiting and expect the US to swiftly take the appropriate steps to bring itself in compliance with the panel recommendations, and this will end this dispute that was causing, of course, a bit of distress in our trade relationship. So we are very much welcoming this development.
All right, any other questions on this issue? No. On other trade-related matters for Miriam? Neither. Okay, so I give the floor to Momchil, who had raised his hand previously. Momchil, you have the floor.
That's Angelina Piskova from Bulgarian National Radio. Sorry for this confusion. But okay, je vais poser ma question en français. Le Premier ministre bulgare, Kirill Petkov, a dit ce matin que le plan de relance bulgare est déjà dans la Commission. Est-ce que vous pouvez bien confirmer la réception du plan? Et s'il est reçu, quand est-ce qu'on peut s'attendre à une évaluation de la part de la Commission? Merci.
D'accord. Un point d'ordre, s'il vous plaît. Je suis désolé, mais il est vraiment important que vous vous connectiez au site avec votre nom et le média. Je vous rappelle que le briefing est ouvert aux journalistes accrédités à Bruxelles et que les invitations sont personnelles. J'imagine qu'il y a une raison technique pour laquelle vous avez fait ceci, mais de manière générale, je ne prendrai pas de questions de journalistes qui, sans nous prévenir à l'avance, se présentent en utilisant un alias qui n'est pas le leur. Cela dit, on va faire une petite exception cette fois-ci, et c'est une question pour Verlet.
Bonjour, donc la Commission a reçu le plan de relance de la Bulgarie le 15 octobre et nous sommes toujours en cours d'analyser le plan. Donc cette analyse n'a pas encore abouti.
Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur les plans nationaux, sur le RF en général, pour Verlet aujourd'hui? D'autres questions d'économie pour Verlet? Non. Alors nous clôturons ce chapitre. Yeah.
Dan Rieger, Deutsche Welle. I have a question for Peter, if possible.
Just ask your question.
What is the reaction of the Commission and the High Representative to the closing of the Deutsche Welle studio in Moscow by Russia?
Yes, thank you very much. Peter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, this is really bad news and bad development. This decision by Russian authorities is unacceptable and lacks any justification. The Russian authorities linked their decision or justified their decision by the decision of a German regulator to ban the Russian state broadcaster RT Deutschland from operating in Germany due to the absence of a valid license. So this decision is completely unrelated to the work of Deutsche Welle in Russia. And this reaction by Russian authorities regrettably illustrates yet again their continuous violation of media freedom and disregard for independence of media. We stand in solidarity with Deutsche Welle and its personnel in Russia, and we will continue to follow the situation very closely. We expect that Deutsche Welle will have full and fair access to all legal steps in order to challenge this unjustified decision in Russia. And we will also issue a corresponding statement on this issue.
Thank you very much. So this opens the foreign relations chapter of this midday briefing. First, are there any other questions on this closure of Deutsche Welle by the Russian authorities? I see one hand raised. No. Okay, so other foreign affairs related questions for Peter. Tanya, you had asked for the floor before, so I give you back the floor.
Ah oui, désolé. Bonjour, tu m'entends?
Vas-y.
Je suis pas sûre que ce soit pour Peter, parce que c'est au sujet de la rencontre de la présidente avec le Premier ministre macédonien. Est-ce que je la pose maintenant ou après?
Écoute, je vois que la présidente vient de tweeter mais je n'étais pas présent à cette réunion, comme tu le vois, vu qu'elle s'est terminée au moment plus ou moins où nous étions en train de venir ici en salle de presse. Donc je te réfère au tweet que nous venons de publier sur cette rencontre. Je n'ai rien à rajouter là-dessus pour le moment. Maria, Foreign Affairs.
Yes, absolutely, foreign affairs. I have another package of questions on migration, but I will first ask about Turkey. And as you know, the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe decided to launch infringement proceedings against Turkey due to its refusal to implement the judgment of the European Court of Human Rights and immediately release Osman Kavala. I saw the announcements yesterday by Peter and EAS, but I would like to know if this changes anything for Turkey's European perspective.
Thank you very much. Peter.
Thank you, Maria. Well, the statement yesterday was very clear. I mean, we reacted to the launching on infringement procedure, so we will need to wait until the end of the procedure and the results of the procedure. But in general, we've been very clear on the case of Mr. Kavala. We have repeatedly called for his release. We have repeatedly called for respecting the decisions by the European Court of Human Rights in his case. And we repeatedly stressed our concerns when it comes to independence of judiciary in Turkey and to the adherence of Turkish judicial system to international and European norms. So of course, judiciary and independence of judiciary and adherence of Turkish judiciary to European standards is being considered in the process of fulfilling the necessary criteria in order to move in the accession process, on which Anna can give you more details. You know that the member states are regularly reviewing everything what Turkey does when it comes to its bid to move forward on the European road, and these are all elements that feed into this review that is being then done by the member states, and which then, as a consequence, consider whether to proceed with Turkey further on its European path or not.
Maria, do you have a follow-up question on this? I see you still have your hand raised. No? Yes?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes,
Yes, go
I
ahead.
have a follow-up. Since we are speaking about Turkey again, I would like to know what is the state of play about the options paper on Varosha. Any news from this front? Thank you.
Well, as always with options papers, these are products for the member states who are discussing them, and these discussions are ongoing. And if there will be any result to be announced, it will be announced properly, as always.
Thank you. Any other foreign relations related questions? Hans-Uwe. Hans-Uwe, make sure you have the right source and press speak. Yeah, go ahead.
Speak is pressed.
You're on a train.
Okay. My question is in a train, yes. My question is concerning the French president's talks with Moscow. To what extent have they been coordinated with external affairs? And the second question is, there are news in German news channels concerning Mr. Stoltenberg, that the NATO General Secretary is going to have another office for his country. Has that been? Has the European Union been informed? Since we always portray that NATO-EU relations have improved over the time. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Hans-Uwe, okay, let's answer first your question on the call of President Macron with President Putin. Peter.
Indeed, I mean, this was already, I mean, French President Macron had a number of calls with President Putin by now, and all the calls are taking place in the context of what the EU is doing in terms of engaging both with Russia and with other partners, with the ultimate aim and objective to bring Russia to the escalation of the current situation around Ukraine. So, of course, the messaging is coordinated. President Macron delivers European messages as they have been agreed among the European allies, together with the partners from the NATO, from the United States, and they are part of the broad outreach that the EU is doing in the current context of the crisis.
On your second question, honestly, we have no comment. It is definitely not for us to comment on announcements on positions to be held by holders of positions in other international organizations. There is definitely, as you have seen, very close coordination between the Commission, the EAS, and NATO on policy. We have seen it in various contexts, in particular in the context of the tensions with Belarus and now with Russia on the situation in Ukraine. Okay, are there other questions for us on foreign affairs? No, then we move on to other issues. And I had Nikolai who had raised his hand early on. Nikolai, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, Nikolai Nielsen, EU Observer. I'm keeping my camera turned off because of internet issues, but I had a question on Frontex. Yesterday, Commissioner Johansson floated the idea of creating a political management board for the agency, and I just had 3 questions on that. Will this board also conduct oversight of the agency? Did her idea receive any support among the ministers? And when does she want this board up and running? Thank you.
Anita. Anything that we can add to the Commissioner's comments? But without wanting to prejudge what Anita will say, you know, when you have such announcements, we usually then work on the proposals. So you need to have a bit of patience when it comes to the details. But Anita, is there anything that you can add?
Thank you very much, Nikolai. Yes, we have seen this, and I will need to follow up with you bilaterally on the exact details and explanations.
Okay, any other questions on home affairs issues for Anita today? Maria.
Yes, thank you again for the floor. So I would like to ask for the 19 migrants who died on Wednesday in Turkey near the border with Greece. I heard yesterday Commissioner Johansson saying that the Greek minister didn't provide any information. Do you have any news from the Greek authorities on that?
Anita.
As mentioned also yesterday by Commissioner Johansson, it is very important that we establish the facts, and this is a matter for the national authorities to investigate. We'll also be asking Frontex and Europol on this matter for any information they might have. And indeed, as also mentioned yesterday in the Midday, the Commissioner has been in close contact also with the Greek authorities to find out more, but at this stage it is still too early to give you any full update on this matter. So facts still need to be established, information still needs to be gathered.
Maria, you have a follow-up.
Yes, sorry. Turkey is blaming Greece for another pushback. Do you have the same concerns? Do you have any indication that this was the case? Anything from this point of view? Thank you.
Anita.
First and foremost, the Commission is always concerned about pushbacks, and we take this reporting very, very seriously.
And of course, it is important that we speak with all actors. Yesterday in Lille and the day before, the Commissioner took advantage of the presence of the Greek authorities to speak, but equally, of course, we'll also be in touch with the Turkish authorities on these matters.
Thank you. I don't know if you mentioned the fact that we were also asking Frontex and Europol for information on this. I think it's important to mention it if it slipped my mind. Right. Any other questions on home affairs for Anita? That is not the case. Thank you, Anita. Oliver.
Hi. I don't know who's in charge of that, but I'd like to know what's the state of play of the due diligence act or due diligence legal proposal the Commission President promised at her State of the Union speech last September, almost half a year ago. So the whole forced labor standards thing.
Oliver, I invite you to have a look at the liste des points prévus, which, as you know, we publish, and which gives you an indication of points which have tentatively been programmed for discussion and adoption in college. We're not in the habit of giving a step-by-step account of preparations on proposals while services are working on them. The liste des points prévus is your best indication of progress being made on a proposal. Oliver, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. Is it in there? And can we trust on it being proposed at such date? Thank you.
Look, Oliver, you'll excuse me for not having every single point which is on the LPP from now until July at the top of my head. There are dozens of proposals which are there, so I'd invite you to have a look, and we can always discuss bilaterally if you have any doubts as to whether it is there or not because of a name issue or whatever. Oliver.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I understand there's a lot on your plate. However, the president raised this issue very prominently in his speech. He said, and I quote, "Human rights are not for sale. There are, let me have a look, 25 million people out there who are threatened or coerced into forced labor. We can never accept that they are forced to make products and these products end up for sale at shops here in the EU." I mean, I'm just saying this is not any of these other dozens of proposals that might be more technical or a bit more, let's put it that way, politically irrelevant. Thank you.
Well, the more politically relevant an issue is, Oliver, the more it needs to be prepared well, thoroughly, in order to make sure that it meets the high standards that you would expect on your side of such a proposal. So the fact that a proposal comes early does not mean that it is more important than a file that comes late. That, I think, is a point which we would all do well to remember in all circumstances. The second thing is that I would say that there were many important proposals that the President announced in her State of the Union speech. Some have already come, others will come. We're an administration with the resources we have, dealing with multiple crises at the same time. And therefore, as I'm sure you can understand, it takes a bit of time before proposals are worked through and make it to the college. Right, that being said, let us now move to other issues, and I give the floor to Joanna.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, Joanna Sapinska for MLEX. I have a trade question, again about the US deal, so probably for Miriam. Do you have any estimations how much trade could be untapped by this deal? And also, why this particular member states, Spain and the Netherlands, will resume trade first, and which other countries could follow suit? Thank you.
So this is a question for Stefan, it seems.
Thank you very much. I think we'll have to get back to you on figures in terms of what this could make possible in terms of future trade. As far as the countries are concerned that I've mentioned, discussions have been ongoing between the FDA and on the United States side and the European Commission with regard to the different production systems to come to these bivalve mollusks. And for instance, audits have been performed in the Netherlands and in Spain by American authorities, and vice versa. Audits have also been performed by the Commission in Massachusetts and in Washington State. And on the basis of these audits, on the basis of further discussions, it was decided by both sides that the production systems used in these countries required or could use a mutual recognition. It's on the basis of this mutual recognition that it was then decided to open the market for trade with these countries. As far as other member states are concerned, I'm not in a position to say anything at this stage. As I explained before, other member states from the European Union could also be allowed to export their bivalve mollusks to the United States following a simplified authorization procedure, but I'm not in a position to tell you now for which member states this may be the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions on this issue for Stefan? No, so I go to Naomi.
Hi, Eric. Thanks very much for taking my question. Naomi Uller, Irish Times. It's an HR question, and it's about whether you have any comment in the light of there was a ruling in a case yesterday where a judge dismissed all charges taken against people in relation to the Golfgate controversy, which was the genesis of why the former commissioner, Phil Hogan, ended up losing his job. I was just wondering, given that all these criminal charges have been dropped and the judge has said that there was nothing against the law that was done, and it was noted that it was a pity that people had lost their jobs over it, I was wondering if the Commission has any regrets over not sort of fighting to keep Commissioner Hogan at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. We never comment decisions by national courts. The statements that we made at the time of the events and the departure of Commissioner Hogan stand, and we have nothing to add to what we said at the time. George.
Yes, hi. Thanks for giving the floor. Apologies for the camera. The question is on travel arrangements and the rules on tests, etc. I understand from the new rules that member states are not supposed to ask for additional PCRs before or after arrival on the holders of the vaccine certificate. But I understand also that some countries still do, at least Cyprus, from what I've seen. Could we have some clarifications on what is mandatory for the member states on this issue, and when are we expected to see member states uniformly stop requiring PCR tests for travelers that have the certificate? Thank you.
This is a question that we've answered many times, but I give the floor to Christian once again on this.
Yes, thank you, Georges, for your question. Happy to clarify once more. Indeed, as was reconfirmed in the adoption of the recent recommendation by the member states on free movement, the EU digital COVID certificate should, in principle, be enough for travel within the European Union, and in principle no additional restrictions should be imposed. Of course, there have been certain exemptions, particularly at the height of the Omicron wave, where we are, by the way, now seeing, I would say, a trend towards easing these restrictions or lifting these restrictions in the number of member states in the last few days. I'm thinking of Denmark, and now also announcements from Portugal yesterday. So this is the principle that you correctly noted, and as we have also said as actually we have said in the statement by the responsible commissioners on the day of the adoption of this recommendation, we would expect member states to now go back to the agreed rules and to lift the remaining restrictions in this context.
Thank you. Any other questions on this issue? George, you have a follow-up.
Yes, just a clarification. Is there a sort of deadline for when member states are supposed to lift these additional measures? Thank you.
Christian.
Well, there is no particular deadline, but in most of these restrictions that have been notified to us, because there is now a notification obligation under the EU Digital COVID Certificate Regulation, we had a number of member states where already these restrictions have only ran until the end of January. We are in contact with some of the member states to make sure and clarify whether indeed these recommendations have also officially expired. And there are some others where it is foreseen to expire in early February. So this is the situation where we stand at the moment, and of course we continue to follow this closely, and also to follow up with member states where it is not entirely clear whether the recommendations are still in place or not.
Okay, any other questions on this issue? David.
Oui, pardon, c'est un follow-up sur Hogan. Je ne sais pas si je peux le poser. Sur l'ancien commissaire Hogan.
Tu peux faire un follow-up, mais je n'ai rien à rajouter. Je suis au regret de te dire. Vas-y.
Non, je comprends que tu n'as rien à rajouter, parce que c'est assez embarrassant, je crois, pour la présidente. Oui, tu peux dire oui avec la tête peut-être, mais en fait, le monsieur Hogan, dans son mémorandum qui avait présenté à la présidente, il avait dit très clairement de croire qu'il avait respecté les règles de santé publique en Irlande pendant sa visite. La commission, la présidente, dans son communiqué du 27 août 2020, elle avait dit qu'elle s'attendait que tous les membres du collège soient particulièrement vigilants sur le respect des lois nationales et régionales applicables. Bon, là, on est dans un état de droit, on a la présomption d'innocence, et il y a un tribunal qui a dit ben non, il a rien fait de mal, monsieur Hogan. Alors, je me demande, au-delà des évaluations politiques, est-ce que vous allez dire pardon, comme on pourrait le faire nous aussi, hein, comme journalistes, qu'on a écrit peut-être des choses qui n'étaient pas correctes. Est-ce que vous allez demander pardon? On s'est trompé.
Merci. Je te rappelle que la décision de la Cour de justice, si je suis bien informé, concerne un événement en particulier très précis. Je ne suis pas au courant du fait que cette décision de la Cour de justice concernait l'ensemble des activités du membre du collège auquel tu te réfères, M. Hogan, sur cette période. Donc je répète encore une fois que la présidente a exprimé sa position sur cette question, l'amitié qu'elle avait pour le commissaire Hogan et le travail qui avait été fait, et nous n'avons rien à rajouter à ce qui a été dit à l'époque. Voilà, y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui? David, un follow-up. j'imagine.
Oui,
C'est un autre sujet peut-être.
Oui, je suis un peu lent, pardon, aujourd'hui. Donc, vous pensez que M. Hogan a violé n'a pas respecté d'autres recommandations, règles, guidelines sanitaires à l'époque?
Écoute,
j'ai bien compris, parce que
tu peux me poser
ta
la
réponse.
question 40 fois. J'ai dit ce que j'avais à dire sur le sujet. Il y a eu une déclaration de la présidente à l'époque. Je t'y réfère. Nous n'avons rien d'autre à rajouter sur le sujet. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui? Ça ne semble pas être le cas. Donc je vous remercie. Je vous souhaite un bon week-end et à la semaine prochaine.